Welcome to the weekly Threat Insights group call. Jumping right into the agenda. We've got some accomplishments to highlight. You can see the 4 items from just this last week. This was 1 week time range. Yay, team. And I'm not sure who added the previous discussion. So who wants to pretend like they're Mark right now?
Yeah, I can do it. Let me get my best Mark impression going on. Hey, yo, it's me, it's Mark. I got so sound like a ghost. Okay, well, anyways, Mark had some concerns about some other things that they're doing on the other secure team. But I responded and saying that we should do some of our work first, and then they can do their work and then we'll finish up afterwards because we are blocked by some back-end work anyways. He agreed to that, and now is like, oh, you're blocking us, so do the one thing. And I am, and so hopefully I'll have an MR up today that gets merged sometime and unblocks them in the future.
Both a great imitation of Mark, and you have just wrapped the whole explanation up to completion. So they had, if I understood correctly, they had some dependencies on some of the early stages of this MR widget refactor. We've taken on those early, so we believe we've unblocked the work that the secure team wants to do. And we can continue to reprioritize the other steps of that MR widget, how Matt feels is best fit.
Yeah. And so going into details a little bit more, this is for the rewording of the messages in the security scanning MR widget, and they want to basically I can change the wording of the vulnerabilities now, but the info and error states need some additional backend work, so I'm blocked on that anyways. So I'm gonna reword the counts, and then they're gonna bring it into the FOSS side, and then we will continue with the updated info and error states after their work. Questions, comments, concerns? Very cool. Anything new to demo? I think the failed pipeline badge got merged in. So that is great. That will bring the vulnerability report pipeline status to completion. I think it's in staging now, maybe in production. That is one thing to demo. That's it actually. That's all I can think of. Moving on to planning breakdown. Create a JIRA issue for vulnerability. So Matt says people want this for some reason. Not sure I believe him, but it seems like an okay thing. Matt, you want to speak to that?
Sure. I will. I'll not say the specific numbers since we're recording this. You can see to the document, but I just want to point out, like, if ever there were a feature that had some initial interest, and then we had additional folks from the sales team keep lumping on, like, hey, I have another customer prospect who wants this, and oh, look, I also have one. The demand for this is really, really high, which is why I moved the integration work from, I had that in sort of the to complete bucket, doing integrations up into, like, basically right now. We've got, as you can see, several thousand license seats and quite a bit of current or potential revenue associated with just this one thing. So it's kind of crazy. And to address oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I had a question. Are you moving this from complete to viable, or are you leaving incomplete, or we're just going to do it sooner?
Yeah, so the intent is to do it as soon as possible, just because of the clear market demand for this. So what is interesting is, while we do have an existing JIRA integration, as Alan points out further down, the integration is more of a window into a Jira project. It doesn't really have a whole lot of link between the two projects. The use case of having vulnerabilities specifically handled and managed inside of GitLab, people really like that, but they do all of the assigning of work product to their engineering teams in Jira. They do their planning boards there. That's where the Scrum Masters organize things. So they need to get the vulnerability information from the GitLab into Jira for the scheduling. So having that direct push is a huge efficiency win for these folks.
And Alan has a number of questions there, which I'm very grateful for. It looks like he's got some experience in doing it. Should we go through some of these? Sounds like yes. All right. So he provided a initial breakdown. His suggestion is that we have one epic for the configuration for vulnerability, the Jira integration configuration vulnerability, and a second epic for issue creation. So on that first one there, he breaks it down a little bit further. I'm not going to read in detail. Matt, did you read that? Did other people read that? Are we in agreement? Or?
I did. I realize it's very late, so that may be one to discuss with Alan to the issues. So we actually started in the second item he has, or sorry, his first item has a proposal, which was just a simple text input box. The rethinking of that was, if we do it as he's suggesting, I'm wondering if there's no validation at all on the issue type in that Jira project. So if we don't do any sort of validation, that's just pushing any failure state to when the user first tries to use the feature from a vulnerability. So they're going to go and hit create, and they're going to get back some response, which presumably there's an error, and we'll have to display something. So if we were to instead try to validate at the time that you're configuring the integration, this is, I think Alexander and I were kind of going back and forth in the issue design about this. Well, you would still have to make the API call out to the Jira instance to validate that that field exists. Well, that call is actually the same method, just a different part of the payload you're looking at, to saying, hey, give me all the issue types for this project. So if you're already getting them back, why not build the dropdown, and then you've already done the validation in the, in that initial setup. So I don't know.
It's a good point. I think if it doesn't add much, it's worthwhile doing it as the first iteration. But there are definitely levels to this as well. So if we do that, there's also a situation where people could change the Jira issue types or workflow, right? The schema there, and then suddenly what worked when we first configured doesn't work anymore. So I guess what I'm saying is you would probably still need the validation and the error handling at runtime, at use time.
Right. We would still have to have that when you tried to create the issue. We
yes.
tried to account for that in the design with the new dropdown of, if you change something in the integration, it basically clears out your project selection. And then there's a little refresh button to basically say, hey, go fetch the new thing and come back. But yeah, certainly if this is too much scope for it, we can go with the text input field. I would like to see if it's a little bit of extra effort to be, the dropdown is way user friendlier too. So then you're not actually having to go out and figure out what the heck is my issue type for the thing.
Cool. Just taking some notes.
Yeah, I would, this is sort of getting into refinement, but I would really like the first sort of ticket to be like, investigate that and be like, can we get the drop down with like minimal effort? I don't know what the Jira API is like, or how that's really handled in our application, so I have to dig into it. But like, if it is a minor amount of extra work, I'd say just go for the drop down. But if it turns into a thing, than input box.
Sweet. Anything else on the 1A? Do we want to talk about the Jira issue creation?
You mean for a one
So,
AI is what you
I
mean.
know. I'm talking Alexander 1B. Alexander II, Alan 1. Yeah, that one there, Matt. By the way, I started sharing or leading this I by accident, if somebody wants to take it back.
Nice. You're crushing it, dude.
All right.
I
So-
like his suggestion. I think that's a great place to cut it on the MVC. I would add, if we don't allow the creation of the issues from other places, we probably at least need to implement turning off the issue create functionality in those other places. So I see Alexander's giving me an inquisitive look. I will explain further. So right now, it's actually very confusing. If you enable a Jira integration for a project, and you also leave the GitLab issue tracker on, what we think of as just having issues in a project, what you actually get is both. And this is kind of what led to, I think, some extra emphasis around doing this story now, this issue now. So I can see my Jira issues will actually go over on the left-hand menu bar, and that will take you into the project view on the Jira side. But I can still create an issue in that project, a GitLab issue. So from vulnerabilities, you can still just sit there and hit create issue all day long, and you get these GitLab issues. With this work, we decided that if you enable this, part of the functionality is it will disable creating a GitLab issue from a vulnerability. This makes it an either or, right? Because I'm overriding that behavior in the integration setting, and that's where I want the issues to go. So I don't think we should split that behavior and say, oh, for the first pass, it's you get Jira issues for vulnerability objects, but if you're on the pipeline or the MR view, the findings, those are still GitLab issues. I think we should just hide the feature from there.
I collected the notes to the best of my ability. If that's confusing.
Yeah, Matt, that last bit that you just described, is that all clear in the issue itself?
No, that was Alan's suggestion of where to cut it for the MVC. So I think if I agree that that's a good place to cut it, so I'll articulate that in the issue.
Yeah, I meant more the hiding, that if we do take that iteration, this importance of being able to not show the, okay, thanks.
Or we just say coming soon and you can't click the button.
Let's just make it clickable, but it doesn't do anything. So right now, if you turn Jira integration on, just to make sure I understood, it works. You can still create an issue from the pipeline view, but it's a GitLab issue, not a Jira issue. Wow. Yeah, we should disable that.
Yeah.
And then are you saying within the standalone page, we hide the create issue button once you have that on already today?
No, so today that is the problem, is people are under the impression that our Jira integration actually creates issues in Jira from the GitLab side, not just for vulnerability management, but like period, end of sentence. So, if you're on a project, you can go up to the top menu and there's the little like plus and you can say, create a new issue, a new epic or whatever. That still exists if you have the Jira integration on for a project. And when you say create issue, it just makes a GitLab issue.
And that's GitLab wide, you're saying?
It's GitLab wide, yeah. So this
Okay.
is already an existing, you want to call it a behavior, a gap in functionality, whatever you want to call it. Just from the vulnerability management side, I think it's more apparent because teams are not using GitLab issues as part of the regular workflow, but since they are using our SCM and our pipelines, they are seeing the vulnerability management side on the dashboards and they're going, oh, cool, create issue. Let me hit that button. And then it makes a GitLab issue and they're like, why isn't this in Jira? I configured the integration. doesn't work that way yet. So that's what we're fixing. So that's why I'm saying if we do it for just the standalone vulnerability details pages, we either should do it in the pipeline and the MR at the same time, or if that's too much, then let's just hide the behavior when the integration is on for now, so that it's not like you're getting two different issues and types in two different places.
Those people should just convert from Jira to, I think GitLab has a product similar.
We do. We're trying. We're up against some momentum. They've got a lot of things like workflows and boards in Jira they don't want to get rid of. It's an interesting hybrid approach, but it is very, very common, especially in some of the bigger business side things. Maybe like if they are going to transition, it's not going to be right away. But honestly, if we can let them do all of their vulnerability management and their source code bits over in the GitLab side, and they're just doing issue management or work planning in Jira, that's still a lot of value for them if they can have that integration point with us. Like, to be clear, we're doing this as the first part of anywhere in GitLab, doing a deeper Jira integration, which is pretty awesome. So I've already had inquiries from the group that owns this and other places to like, hey, could you guys do this in a way that we could copy it later for other object types and sync those to Jira? Because that's pretty cool and people want it.
Great segue to number 3 and talking about the help that we could get from other groups who own this integration.
Yes, so I see Alan asked about plan project management. I think in this case, it's actually confusingly a little bit, it's the Create ecosystem team that owns all of the integrations. It's a very small team, like they're smaller than our team. And they are pretty much, so I've spoken with their product manager a few times, Patrick Dooley. He's super on board with us building this out. He's seen the plans for the design and everything. I don't know which engineers on his side have worked on this in the past, but I will certainly find out.
Excellent. We're happy to go and attend whatever their discussion, Q&A, open office hour sessions are, or however we need to help facilitate that.
Yeah, and I don't know how actively this plugin is being worked on or when the last time it was really touched. So this could be kind of picking up some little bit of stale knowledge here. I've also been cautioned not to scare you, Alexander, but that this is it's an old piece of code. It is fairly brittle. You'll see that the way that the designs are laid out, it's a little bit kind of like we shoved our piece in the middle of the larger integration. That's not how the original design was done, but we were cautioned that if you don't put it there, everything might break and you'd have to refactor the whole page.
You're talking about the place where they go to configure this integration today.
Yeah, the integration configuration screen. So just be careful in there.
Say that 3 times fast.
Which is a really good call out, Matt, that we will be contributing to this other stage of the product as part of this change. We're not dependent on them making a change. There's nothing that we're going to be harnessing that's already there. There'll be new code added to another part of the code that we've never worked in.
Pretty much, yeah. This is something they're really in favor of us just building ourselves, because there's no way that this is going to bubble up onto their roadmap in the next probably year plus. And so we're actually kind of helping them move the product forward a little bit as well. And they're willing to pitch in expertise as they can.
Got it. Thank you. I'll be sure to factor in the time it'll take to refactor into the refinement.
Let's see.
And then, yeah, Alan has a few more things.
I agree with this point there. Just doing the minimum amount of work necessary with required fields, especially relying on default Jira scheme matter schemes, because it can get as complex as you want. But I had a follow-up piggyback on that, which is, are we expected to handle two-way sync, a scenario where we create an issue from a vulnerability in GitLab, And then when that issue is closed in Jira, do we update the vulnerability GitLab?
Great question. So let me answer just to Alan's question first. So we are very purposely using only the title and the description fields, which I don't think that's actually what Jira calls them, but those are the only two I think required and guaranteed field types for all their default as well as custom objects. It has to have a title and it has to have a description. So that's why we're putting our title in their title, and then everything else is just getting dumped to the description. So we don't need to worry about anything fancier. And then Thiago, to your question, no, this is not a two-way sync. This is basically a one-way push of information from us over onto the Jira side. All we need is that link over to the Jira project so that you can click it and it'll call out. Eventually, it would be nice to do things like pulling back in the Jira status onto our side for some of the little badge icons of status. Anything around syncing of information between that is way in the future. This is just, don't make me copy and paste from an issue, go over to Jira, manually open a new one, manually paste it in, that kind of thing. And you'll note we're also pushing it directly over there. We're not even trying to open a UI on our side. So this is, it just goes for right now. So there's a lot more we could do, but definitely trying to keep this as minimal as possible.
Thank you. At this point, we dropped the copy and paste idea, right? The MVC will be with content, create with content.
Yes, create with content. Yeah.
Cool.
Ooh,
some,
6.
yeah,
So
5, I think we can skip.
I did have a test instance, and then I went to go check it to get the link for here, and I got this awesome message that apparently our account has been suspended because we didn't pay for it. So I reached out to Patrick to see if that's a thing that we're going to get back. Free account? I guess.
How about self-hosted instances for local development?
I would recommend against that, just for the reason is that they're two different products at Atlassian, and most customers are on the cloud hosted for Jira.
Excellent.
But definitely a great question, though. It's unlike GitLab, where we have a big mixture of self-hosted and cloud-hosted. They're primarily cloud-hosted.
Isn't my understanding on Jira they're getting away from self-hosted?
That too. Yeah, they said they did where they're they're getting rid of self-hosted.
There's still enterprise.
Yeah, they're moving away from it for certain things. Let's say more accurately. Yeah.
I think they're getting rid of a server, Jira Server, which is also can be self-hosted, but Jira Enterprise is not Jira Server and can be self-hosted. So, but I think if the answer is to focus on cloud right now, and we'll just do that.
So, what should we do to accelerate this as appropriate due to the priority and impact? Lower priority other things, add people from other teams temporarily, etc.
I mean, I don't see a real need to move, or I should say to accelerate. I think keeping it where it is, I'm okay with that right now. And then, yeah, a big part of that was, well, not a big part, a good coincidence of timing is the MR security report. The other 3 steps moving that priority out. So if this were to even start to some of the
scope, so we have a real MVC, so we can get it done. That minimal viable change or changes earlier rather than reprioritize other things.
Yeah, I think if we start doing some of the technical investigation work in 13.6, and even, I don't know if we even get started or not, but try to work on this in 13.7, that's very much in line where I would want to keep it. Because this got pulled in from like probably middle of next year or later. I do want to go back, Wayne, you made a great point. So the way that I had asked for this in the issue was to actually support. So we do support integrations with both the Jira on-prem as well as cloud. We have 2 different plugins. I asked for both because I honestly don't have a good sense of what the breakdown is among the customers that have asked for this. That would probably be another good place to split that out. It sounds like maybe the Jira Cloud should be the first MVC, and then we can follow up with
In general, most of
ones.
their customers are cloud, but that doesn't mean the customers who requested this feature from us are.
Yeah, exactly. I have a bunch of Salesforce links, and I would have to go shake a lot of trees to figure that out. I can try to get an answer on that to give a better sense of that.
Giddy up.
But yeah, since we do have plugins for both places, so I think in lieu of a quick answer, the decision could be we can do cloud first and call that the MVC, and then look at if it even makes sense to do the self-managed portion.
And what are you going to work out an instance for us as well, Matt? Because not only we need it for development, but I'm thinking of automated testing as well, integration testing. So we need something that's alive there. But we haven't decided. And Lindsay, I saw you mention that you're going to mention Will, which is great because we need to decide how we're going to keep testing this.
Yeah, and months back when I had poked at something else related to this, I feel like somebody internally had pointed me towards a Jira instance that was used in some projects for some testing. Let me go see if I can dig that up as well. So we must have these in some places. It just doesn't seem very clear.
We'll probably need multiple instances. I'm guessing there will be a dedicated instance for automation tests, a dedicated, if a developer wants to do something locally, they'll need one. So, or maybe that one is the one that can be shared. I just don't know how well this will play if, Jonathan is doing some tests there and then Alexander decides to use the same instance to do, it might not work out that well, but I don't know. So if you find something, let me know. If not, I can dig it up as well, please. Thank you.
This feels like a tricky one from a testing perspective, and that we should have Will come to this meeting next week since it's the EMEA friendly time and he's in Dublin to talk specifically about the testing for this and the things that you guys were just bringing up. I'll add that to that mention in the design issue or epic, whichever one makes more sense.
And we're at time with that.
Woo! That being said, I don't know if is this ready to start breaking it down? I know we're at time, so it's asking a question. Alan gave us some suggestions. Maybe we can at least start with that, the two feature MVCs, and then look at one of those, the first one of those, and start the planning breakdown toward that. Tiago,
I think there's a lot to it. I don't know who's breaking up. Is it me or Lindsay?
I was just talking over you, I think was the problem. Go ahead. Oh, hi, Jonathan's cute.
I was going to propose that we write those epics as they are, and so we can at least start populating, and we'll keep going back and forth until we in refinement proper.
Right. We're trying to escalate. I was going to say, we're trying to escalate this a little bit. We don't want to wait until 12.7 to start on this, or 13.7 to start on this. So anything that we can do to, do this asynchronously, get this broken down, start on some of the earlier pieces, it's making progress towards it. So
yeah, write some spikes on that configuration epic, because we'll need them anyway. So we'll start moving.
Cool. Well,
Yeah,
Tiago, go ahead.
I agree with that. And then as Alan has mentioned as well, there can be a ticket that's like a spike on investigating Jira connection, and that could probably start working on ASAP.
Totally. Tiago, I'll work with you offline on who's going to do those epics. Thank you, everybody. I'll share the recording.
We'll talk us async.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Jonathan, your daughter's so cute.